Good evening, everyone. It's so amazing to be here. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to get logged in. Welcome. My name is Nia Jones. On behalf of the Black Mental Health Alliance, we are super excited to do something super new and fresh and awesome and fun for young people and for the individuals that serve them. Again, my name is Nia Jones, and tonight we are talking about I Am Not My Trauma. And so we'll be discussing adverse childhood experiences, risk and protective factors, healing-centered engagement, and different resiliency tools for youth and the adults who serve them. I'm going to give everybody a few more minutes to get logged in. Go get yourself something to drink, grab some popcorn, some chips, some celery sticks, some carrots, whatever it is that you want to enjoy. We will be getting started in a few minutes. Hello, drop us in the chat where you're joining us from. We are so excited to do this. You can absolutely share. Send this far and wide to your friends across the country, across the world. Nothing here is a secret. Our liberation is within this amazing presentation. Feel free to send the link or to send the invitation to whomever you like. We'll be getting started shortly. All right, we got Cleveland in the house. Towson, Maryland. Hey, neighbor. Everybody come on in and join. Hello from Atlanta. Thank you for joining us. We got another Maryland friend. Brooklyn, New York. Baltimore, Maryland. Greenville, South Carolina. So excited to see you all. This is absolutely amazing to have you all here. Cincinnati, Ohio. Come on, internet, making us all citizens of the world. How awesome is this? Sacramento, California. Welcome, everyone. Super excited. We'll be getting started shortly. We got somebody from Toronto. This is a safe space, a friendly space, a welcome space. You know, the internet is undefeated, so everybody be nice to each other in the chat box. But feel free to drop in your questions, comments, concerns. We are happy to answer your questions as they roll in. I have some amazing special guests who will be joining us tonight, and it's sure to be a good time. So it is 5:05. Folks are going to continue to roll in, and we're going to keep on rolling, stay on time. So again, my name is Nia Jones. Welcome on behalf of our executive director who will be joining us shortly, Ms. Andrea Brown. We are super excited to offer this event tonight called I Am Not My Trauma. And so often in our communities, we see that young people are like, well, I'm just crazy, or I'm just this way, or I can't really change how I am. And it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. There are some things that have happened to you. And so tonight we're going to begin to unpack those things that have happened, and to offer to adults who serve young people, especially young Black people, some different tips and key practices to be able to help those young people unpack. And so you'll see behind me, I didn't clean up my room. I forgot. Forgive this hustling therapist with all of her books in the background and all of her creativity. My bad. But I'm a real person, a real human, struggling on the struggle bus in these COVID times. But I want to start with a few affirming thoughts that will drive our conversation tonight. And that is, the basis of all knowledge is self-knowledge. Everyone in the Black community has a right to be well. Our healing is not just clinical, it is political. We must fall in love with what we can be, and being in love with that happy, whole person that you're eventually going to see on the other side. Anytime I see clients, I always ask them, yes, you have some trauma, but what would life look like without it? Let's talk about that. Whatever I or we believe I or we can achieve together, and we must begin to dream again. What's possible? It breaks my heart when I'm working with a young person and they're like, Miss Nia, I don't even know what it'll look like. What if I were to dream about something like that? I have no concept. Anything is possible. Let's think big. Let's dream big. And finally, I am more than just my trauma. And so tonight's event is inspired by one of my favorite researchers and creators and minds. His name is Dr. Sean Jenwright. It's also inspired by one of my favorite people, one of the principal consultants at the Black Mental Health Alliance, Mr. Richard Rowe. And so I've taken all of that information to be able to present to you all tonight on a very amazing topic. And so our first guest is Mr. Bobby Marvin Holmes. And just a little bit about him, he is a licensed master social worker and founder of Son of a Dream Services and Multimedia Resources. He is a dynamic and well-rounded professional and has a dual background in human services and media. Like, what? I was just talking to a young person earlier today saying that you can do those things. You can put those things that don't sound like they go together and to make the things that you want to see. His career spans across diverse areas of practice, and he has nearly a decade of combined experience of working within the public child welfare system, the behavioral health sector, the public school system, and community-based programs. He currently serves as the mental health therapist for Parker Psychiatric Services, a good friend of the Black Mental Health Alliance. And in addition, he is the founder of, as I said, Son of a Dream Services and Multimedia Resources, an agency committed to the healthy development and success of children, youth, and families. He's also the co-founder of Reflection of Kings, a youth development and media program for Black boys. He's a staunch advocate for youth and families and has participated in various grassroots initiatives and policy actions, including addressing community violence and ensuring healthy school facilities. He's a proud husband and father and lives right here in Baltimore, Maryland, The Wire, Charm City, my home, the place I've always called home. And so I'm going to welcome Bobby to the stage. And there's no wonder why I even asked him to join after that amazing bio. So welcome, Bobby, to I Am Not My Trauma, our first YouTube live event.
Thank you, Nia. Appreciate it. Thank you for the invitation. Look forward to building with the family this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm not sure. Is there anything that I didn't mention in your bio that you want the folks to know?
Hey, I'm passionate about the work. That's enough,
Absolutely. So we have folks from across the country right now in the chat. Virginia, Colorado, Toronto, Pennsylvania, and some folks here right in Baltimore. And so as we kind of jump into New Haven, Connecticut, just popped up. As we jump into this dialogue, I think that it's important that when we think about trauma, that we kind of examine the experiences of the individual. So you're a therapist and a whole bunch of other stuff, and so am I. And so I think we have a really interesting perspective. But in helping young people to understand that they're more than their trauma, it not only includes an examination of that experience of how and why whatever it is that happened, but kind of the totality of their experience. And so kind of in your conversations with young people and even in working with adults who serve young people, how would you start to have that conversation around examining the experience to understand that we are more than the trauma that happened to us?
Well, I think, it is the basis of what we were taught in grad school, strength-based perspective, right? Honoring and valuing the lived experience of the people we serve, children and families we serve, and not looking at folks as if they're broken. Not getting caught up in our own arrogance as providers and thinking we're here to save folks, and look at it as through the lens of you're here to support someone.
Yeah.
And recognizing first they have something to offer the world, that
Mhm.
they are an asset, not a deficit. You
Mhm.
know, folks like they're human beings and connecting with
Yeah.
them where they are.
Yeah.
I would say that's a critical step, that not just therapists one-on-one tend
Mhm.
to get wrong sometimes, but I would say our profession
Yeah.
have got wrong for quite some time.
Mm.
And then that we probably the profession probably did more harm than good, uh,
Mm.
if we're
Wow.
being honest,
Yeah.
in terms of service delivery and what that looks like, and how we showed up in so many communities, uh,
Mhm.
particularly when you're looking at communities that have been underserved for years, Black and Brown communities,
Mhm.
um, and how we showed up in their communities and probably inflict more harm.
Yeah. Absolutely. And sometimes I think about when we talk about our community specifically. So I grew up in East Baltimore. I still live in the same zip code that my parents moved me to when I was 7. For the first 6 years of my life, I was in West Baltimore. And people will always say, "Oh, it doesn't have what it needs. It's under resourced. Let's write these grants." And I was like, are you sure? Like, there was some
Right.
amazing programs. Now, did it have all of what it need? No, because I can remember very distinctly my mother going to a grocery store and buying a pack of chicken off of the shelf at a grocery store. The date said one thing, but when she got it open, that chicken was no good.
Right.
And so did it have everything? No, but there was so many really great programs and experiences and people in the hoods of Baltimore, in the hoods of Philly that make these experiences for our young people. Is there some bad? Yes, but there's always this goodness that's also there, that sometimes I think that people, especially in our profession, don't consider. And so I think about like Dapper Dan. He's one of my favorite examples when I talk about like understanding trauma and unpacking it. He talks about growing up in Harlem and being really poor, but not really understanding it. He was like, everybody around me was poor. And he was this really amazing mathematician and writer, but the only thing he could do was be a hustler.
Mhm.
And now this hustler has taken fashion and rebranded it and repackaged it all the way to the point that now there's a Gucci in Harlem. And so imagine if somebody had really capitalized on those strengths and examined that experience. Like, how did you even get to the point where you could kind of count these large numbers in your head without the assistance of a calculator? And he writes in his book that somebody always inspired him to dream. And it came from his mother and his father and the people at church. And so examining those entire experiences, you're absolutely right that sometimes we can do some harm, because we kind of put on that cape and try to fly in and save. So completely agree. Folks, you can feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. If you agree, give us an amen corner. I told Bobby earlier that I'm married to a preacher. I come from a long line of Baptist preachers, so an amen corner is always helpful. But I want to talk a little bit more about kind of like we talk about these experiences, but let's kind of unpack those systems. So, like when we talk about adverse childhood experiences,
Right.
that's stuff at the top.
Right.
At the bottom, there are those adverse community environments and those systems that kind of caused the trauma and harm in the first place. And so we can't talk about the how and the why without discussing those larger experiences. What are your kind of thoughts around those root causes?
Absolutely, and I'm definitely grateful for your question, and I believe right now this is the conversation we should be having in our
Mhm.
profession. Um,
Yeah.
uh, you already know me as social workers, we can't afford to just look at the what.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look at the why, how things got this way.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I want to say 2019, if I'm not mistaken, Baltimore City Council was trying to pass the trauma bill, trauma
Mm-hmm.
legislation in Baltimore City. And
Yeah.
folks who don't know, this was a bill that will push to make city agencies, local agencies, and the general public at large more trauma informed and trauma response. And on surface, I thought it was a great idea, and it still is very much a great idea and very much needed. However, I wanted to deposit in a conversation that we have to look at this. We are decades short, a decades late, excuse me, and $1 billion short in addressing this problem.
Yeah.
When we look at years of generations of trauma that these families, these communities have experienced. And then in 2019, in Baltimore City, we got the grand idea of, wow, we need to be more trauma responsive. And relatively, the word trauma is to extent new in a lot of spaces. And the conversations we're definitely already been having in human services. We're having more conversations that education and various sectors are having now. But for decades, it's been, happening.
Yeah.
If we look at Baltimore City, let's just focus on Baltimore City. That was the model for redlining, the model for segregation for other cities across our nation. We have books such as Not in My Neighborhood that outlines this. We have the Butterfly Effect, I believe, by Dr. Lawrence Brown. I may be messing up the title, that explains this. We also have The Color of Law, that book that also explains how segregated cities, hyper segregated cities, were created in Baltimore City. So for and this is entrenched, and this is this was something that was comprised not just by the efforts of local public officials that the public officials folks vote for, but this was community associations, this was banks, this was folks conspiring to push Black folks out of certain neighborhoods in Baltimore City. And creating what a lot of folks, may call, the ghetto, the hood, or whatever. But essentially, you created concentrated poverty. It was orchestrated in Baltimore City. When you talk about concentrated poverty, so when folks, come with this, this pathologies and this deficit talk of, why they like this, why don't they want more for themselves, why they allow their communities to get that way. It's important to understand that these communities were designed to do exactly what they're doing now. This was concocted to do so, exactly what we're seeing now. So when folks say, well, why, the police must police these communities because that's where the crime is. No, that's where the poverty is, and that's the point that we've missed. So when we come in about what I want to say 6-7 generations later, talk about, yes, we're here to serve you. We come in as folks from the Department of Social Services. We come in as folks from public schools. We come in, from folks from mental health agencies saying, we're here to support you now. You're 7 generations late. This is the same systems that are failing me as a 15-year-old Black boy in West Baltimore are the same systems that failed my mother and my father, same systems that failed my grandparents, same systems that failed my great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents. Historically underserved. So when we come in with our brand new MSW degree and our brand new license saying, yeah, we here to save you now, you're late and you're ill-informed. Problem. And we, and talk about systems orchestrated the suffering and the harm. And we must look at it like that, like we're taught in grad school, the macro and the meso and the micro and the person in the environment. We have to look at that, the person and the environment. So the trauma you experience, the fear you experience, the anger you experience is inflicted on by something else. There's an antecedent to your emotions, to what you're feeling. You didn't just come out your mother's womb. Rodney didn't come out his mother's womb, you know, angry and frustrated and disenchanted. That was cultivated.
Mm-hmm.
That fear and that trauma was cultivated being in these conditions, being in these communities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for us to understand that before we even step foot in the communities,
Yeah.
to try to act like we're offering support. We have to understand what has been done.
Mm-hmm.
And once we understand what has been done, like I said, generations of trauma
Yeah.
inflicted on this family and this community,
Yeah.
and it was designed to be this way,
Mm-hmm.
then we begin to understand, okay, well, this is why there's a lack of resources.
Yep.
This is why there's a lack of funding. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when we look at across the board, our systems, Nia,
Yeah.
it's been a long-standing lawsuit in the state of Maryland about the lack of funding for historically Black colleges and universities in
Mm-hmm.
Maryland. There are now laws being looked at by the Maryland State Legislature, looking at the inadequate funding. The inadequate funding was also looked at by Baltimore, as far as the school systems as well, and
Mm-hmm.
saying that Baltimore City public schools are woefully underfunded.
Yeah.
So if we spent decades ensuring,
Mm-hmm.
not by lapse of memory, ensuring
Mm-hmm.
that these communities have lack of resources, then generations later we are surprised at the end result. There's no need to be surprised at the end results.
Right.
My family, my father, my uncles have all been impacted by mass incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
It was designed to say, okay, we're going to create poor communities. Then with lack of opportunity, frustration, and lack of resources, and desperation, when you go to the crime, we're going to say, okay, we set up a system to now police you.
Yep.
And we have to look at that here in Baltimore City, where you had, for I'll say past 6 years or so, averaging over 300 homicides a year. Look how many, particularly Black men, being disproportionately impacted by it. Look at also the rate of incarceration within our communities. In 2015, it was the Justice Policy Institute that released a report showing where the zip codes in the state of Maryland that has the highest concentration of folks who are currently serving time in prison. And I'll say about 2 or 3 of those zip codes were in Baltimore City. The highest zip codes were in Baltimore City. So if you looked at, we did a hell of a job in investing in the destruction of Black folks, particularly Black men and boys. And we did a hell of a job in making sure they're incarcerated, and then look at how much did we invest in public health, how much did we invest in education. There's no reason to wonder why we have what we have.
Yeah.
It's not by accident, and it's not Baltimore City just an anomaly, and we're just weirdos. Baltimore City, Detroit, Philadelphia, so many cities across the nation, that's predominantly Black or have a Black population, have suffered the same instances
Mm-hmm.
across our nation. Like I said, Baltimore City was only the model for redlining, but other cities have went through the same exact thing. So when we look at the conditions and which we forced folks to be under for generations,
Yeah.
and did a masterful job at doing so, there's no surprise that we are where we are right now. And I think for anyone who is looking to serve folks, we must educate ourselves on that first. We must educate ourselves on the impact, because thus that is systemic racism, that is structural racism. When
Mm-hmm.
people hear these complex ideas and wondering how did it come to fruition, like what does that mean? What it look like? Well, that's what it looks like.
What it looks like.
You have school systems, schools in Baltimore City that dates back to the 50s, that now you can't drink out of the fountains because of lead paint poison.
Yep.
That's what it looks like. As Tupac, where they say the thug, THUG, the hate you gave.
Yep.
This is as Malcolm X said, the chicken's coming home to roost. This is
Mm-hmm.
the end result of
Yeah.
generations of despair, generations of frustration, generations of racism and poverty. This is the end result that we're forced to deal with. And I believe anyone who is thinking about entering this line of work needs to understand that first.
Absolutely. Well said. You said it how I wrote it. I'm kidding. So it is, I've heard people say that the system isn't broken. It's producing exactly what it needs to produce. And you made me think of just yeah. I'm speechless. It is what needs to be taught, quite honestly, to social workers, to psychiatrists, right? Because they're coming into our neighborhoods, prescribing medication, throwing around medicines that are highly addictive and can just like take you out, like, and down, all because of some trauma that I experienced. If you could help me heal, right? Maybe I wouldn't be on gabapentin for depression. And so those things are definitely important. So those adverse community environments, I like to say it's the seed that was planted that then produces this strange fruit of, so you planted a lack of opportunity. You planted a lack of economic capital. You planted community disruption and over policing. You planted poverty in this system that you created, and violence. I tell people all the time, I don't know any Black people that own boats that can get drugs into our ports. We live in a port city.
Right.
I don't know any. I know Black people that own boats, but they don't own shipping containers that can get drugs into our communities. I don't know, any Black people that have that's billions of dollars that can then drop drugs into our communities. I know the ones that sell it. Plenty of dope boys. I don't know anybody with shipping containers that can get it from wherever it is that they grow it into our cities. And so those things are planted. And then what is produced? That strange fruit of substance abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, depression, neglect, mental illness, incarceration, all of that. You planted those seeds.
Right.
And it produced that strange fruit. So you are absolutely on it. We did get a couple of questions. Everybody, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We will definitely be getting to those in a little bit, but you're on the money for sure. And so, with all of that in mind, kind of as we consider, the how and the why and the person in this environment, how, as a clinician, have you been able to help your clients drive what I call both cars down the road? We see you, we hear you, we understand your trauma, but we also want to help you get to your healing. How have you been able to do that with young people as well as adults?
One important thing that I was late to the party with, and I'm gonna send folks the invitation right now, early on, because I don't want them to be late like I was. Do your own work first. Do your own work. I have to stress and emphasize that right now I'm participating in a training by the good sister, another social worker, Shauna Mary Brown, and she has a training called Therapy That Liberates. And this training is a lot of trainings that we undergo and participate in for CEs and so forth is about the work, how we can best help our clients, how we can best serve folks. But this training is very unique because it focuses on how we can address our own stuff. And I believe that's important first, to take a deep dive, not just saying, yeah, well, I check my own biases. No, take a deep dive in it and where that's rooted. Your own privilege, whether it's white privilege, whether it's class, education, whether it's male privilege. Folks, before we work with other people, we have to do our work. And that is what I spoke of earlier, Neil, when I talk about the arrogance of our profession. That we are here to serve, save. Sometimes we get the two confused. Other people, and we act like our ish don't stink.
Yeah.
That's problematic, because we do harm when we walk in people's communities and in their homes, looking at them as if they're broken, and we're the one to fix them.
Yeah.
Um, without doing the necessary work and examining our own trauma, examining our own, for white clinicians, examining your own racism, your own racist practice, taking a good hard look at that little current that's inside of you, that you argue and because you're a social worker. No, not because our code of ethics say we're social justice. Yeah, right. You were human and you were white before the code of ethics, before NSAW. So it's important to do the necessary work and taking a deep dive of how your racism have shown up throughout your lifetime, how the racism within your family, how did it show up in your household. And it's important, for folks for those who, grew up middle class background, not knocking it, but what are some of your beliefs, your values, of folks on the other side of the track? You from Baltimore near on how folks in Baltimore County look at folks in Baltimore City. And what happens when you walk in with your ideas of how the world should be versus the ideas of what really is, and calling yourself helping people, and you're actually doing harm, because at that point you're attacking that person for who they are and where they are based on your own privilege. So I say first and foremost, do your own work. Get your own therapist. Every good therapist has a good therapist. So can the church say amen?
Amen.
Do your own work first. Before you go out and say, I'm going to save people, make sure you save yourself first.
Absolutely.
Save yourself from the world. Because you walking in with the Superman cape on, and you could be the villain the whole time. Or doing the villain's work, because you're representing this agency, so you're doing their bidding, as if you're a minion. So I would say first do your own work, and then after you've done your own work, and really that's a journey. That's not all right. Come April 15th, I'm going to be done. That's a journey. You're always working on yourself. I'm working on myself. I never walk in a space thinking I got it because he a black male and I'm a black male, so it's all going to work out. No, it's not. It's not. I have to continue to do my work and not thinking that I got it together, because he's a young black male like I am, and not paying attention to my own biases, not doing my work with checking my own phobias, transphobia, homophobia. If you're not doing your work, you're going to cause harm. And I think that's the part we often miss. Toxic masculinity. If we're not doing our own work, we're no good to the people we claim to serve.
Absolutely. I tell my clients all the time, I have a therapist. I see her on Thursdays at 12 noon. If you're looking for me, don't, because I'm not available. We can talk at 1, we can talk at 11, but during that time, I got to take care of it. And so then they find it hilarious. And then some are actually surprised by it. And I'm like, y'all think I sit here and listen to your stuff all week long, and that I don't need it. I don't need anybody to take care of me too. But as a Black woman, you talked about like that toxic masculinity and all of that. Sometimes we have to check it as well, right? We got to check the fact that I was trying at one point to be everything to everybody, and that doesn't help the young people when they come to me. And I got, I have a stacked day, and they're like, "Well, I just wanted Miss Nia to listen to me." But I was too unavailable. And so being able to take care of yourself is important, and to do your work. Do your work for sure. But there is a special guest waiting in our green room that I want to bring on really quickly, because I just do. And she told me not to, but I'm breaking the rules. So our amazing executive director, the reason that we are all here, and we're going to jump right back in. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. But really the reason that we're here today and being able to have this really out of the box experience is Miss Andrea Brown, who sets the vision for the Black Mental Health Alliance. So Andrea, I'm going to bring you on. I know I break a lot of rules. It's fine.
You do. We're gonna have to work on that. So, but so let me just say, first of all, thank you for the grace to be late. But I got notes already. Can you see them? I got notes, and you know, not the little Karen in me, and I'm just you were talking about redlining, and I'm like, you were talking about Malcolm. Look, I got my Malcolm shirt on. I don't know if anybody can see it, but and I'm not about to apologize for that. But in all honesty, first of all, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for speaking truth, right, to us. And to where we find ourselves. I love Shauna's title, The Therapy That Liberates. I think that far too often we do too much of everything else that doesn't liberate us. So I am excited about this discussion. I am not my trauma. And so Nia is amazing as a clinician, and more importantly, as she leads our youth and young adult division. So I'm super excited about that. If you give me one indulgence, you know, we are voracious readers at the Black Mental Health Alliance. And even if you don't want to read, you're going to have a book, right? Because we're going to read. Because we are not going to be ignorant. Ask Nia, we've gotten 5 books, and I've been there a year and a week. And so we've read them and had the discussion. But I am also a big fan of music. And when you started talking about Strange Fruit, it just took me back to, obviously, Billie Holiday. And so somebody may have said this, and my apology if it's already been read, but I just want to read that 3 lines. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. And so it's interesting as we find ourselves today. Now this song was years and years ago, right? The notion of strange fruit. And we find ourselves today in 2021, still strange fruit, right? And it's not just southern, it's northern trees now. And so I will be the student tonight and listen. But again, thank you for your truth tonight. I hear you. I could go on and on about the little Karens in me, a whole lot in me. So I yield to you, and I give it back to you, Nia. And thank you for joining us, and be on the lookout. And so super excited about this discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. She turned the camera off and left. But we have a couple questions in the chat, and we have a couple more pieces that I definitely want to get to, and then we have our special guest who is waiting in the green room to share with us. But the first question is this going to be up so that folks can rewatch it? Absolutely. It will be on our YouTube page from now until they say no more Michelle Obama's internet. And then someone else said, how, if at all, is the trauma-informed legislation actually influencing the way policy is created locally, as it is policy that is shaping the way many human service providers interact with folks? Any thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. Right now in the state of Maryland, it's our legislative session. Which takes place from January to April. I don't have the exact dates. But just like Baltimore City passed the legislation, the trauma informed and responsive legislation in the city locally, statewide, our state legislature is looking at trauma-informed, trauma responsive legislation, the Maryland trauma bill. So right now, folks are looking at that bill, but at the same time, there are police reform bills that are on the table for consideration as well. So it's been a fight for advocates that I'm in communication with. I'm not directly involved in policy advocacy around police reform. But I've been in contact with folks like leaders of a beautiful struggle here in Baltimore, as well as the ACLU of Maryland, who are working with police reform. And it's been an uphill battle with trying to pass police reform legislation here to hold police accountable. The state of Maryland is very unique because we have the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, which is a certain guidelines, structures on the appropriate way to respond to police misconduct. Oftentimes, some people argue it protects police. For years here in the state of Maryland, advocates have been trying to repeal it. This may be that year. However, amendments were taken out that will give community oversight to folks, so community be able to have oversight on police misconduct and what's happening to hold them accountable, tighten the reins, so to speak. And needless to say, lawmakers, I just want folks, to be clear with some few things. Maryland's considered a democratic state, democratic controlled state. Our governor may be a Republican, but the state legislature, is democratic controlled. And so the ones who are primarily decide whether or not police reform legislation pass or fails are Democrats. And 2 + 2 is 4. Democrats are the ones who are undermining legislation. Same Democrats that are going to vote on trauma informed, trauma responsive bill that's also being looked at. So when you look at the other policy, if you look at it, that yes, it's great that we're going to have a trauma informed and trauma responsive bill. That's great. But if you're undermining policy that will rein in misconduct by the police, then what good is it? If you're going to say, yeah, we're going to make our state agencies more trauma responsive and more trauma informed so we serve people, but on the other hand, you're going to allow police to go in their communities and beat the hell out of them with no repercussions or consequences, what's the point? So that's what's happening in real time. To the answer of that person's question of how that's affecting other policy as far as trauma informed. No, the trauma continues. The trauma continues, and we have to understand how systemic racism and structural racism is embedded. It's in this country, in this country's DNA. It's not something, a shirt you could just take off and throw in the laundry and just wash and everything's gonna be better. No, it's in this country's DNA. It's entrenched. So we'll wonder, well, how can that be? How can we have, the Democrats folks are working, and this is not a partisan critique. This is the reality, the facts of what is. This is, and I'm making that distinction so folks won't get it confused. Right. Whether you identify as a Democrat or Republican, this is just the reality of what is. It doesn't matter that when it comes to racism, I'm sure you heard this statement, Nia, that Black people we're not a monolith. We're not a monolith. Well, let me explain something to you. Racism is very monolithic. It's very monolithic. It always has been.
Yeah.
So if you're not clear on whether or not you should stand together, trust me, racism is clear that it should stand. It's to stand together and impact Black folks, brown folks throughout all its systems. It doesn't say, well, we're just going to focus on education and leave all the other systems that we have, healthcare or criminal justice alone. No, it's very monolithic. It's very clear. And it doesn't say, well, we're just going to exist within the Republicans. We're not going to exist within Democrats. No, it exists there as well.
Yeah.
It's so entrenched that you don't realize it, that you are actively upholding systemic racism. You are actively upholding white supremacy within these spaces. So to answer the question, that's how this is showing up. It's more trauma induced. It's on let's continue the trauma. While on one hand we're saying let's pass a law to address the trauma. We're on the other hand, we're saying let's pass laws that would increase the trauma or perpetuate the trauma.
Yeah, yeah. And so, as I said earlier, our healing is more political than it is clinical. You just explain why. And so, kind of with that in mind, because I want to make sure we get Elder on the stage and have her to time to present. But when we think about like these principles and values of well-being within this trauma, right? So if we're going to, really heal as a country, it's going to take some deep surgery and really cleaning the wounds that are left behind from that surgery. We still got to, again, drive both cars down the street, get individuals to live within this place of hope when things look hopeless, to imagine, to trust, to have aspirations in the midst of this darkness. What are your kind of thoughts around how we can kind of lift up those cultural principles and values in the midst of the trauma that we just talked about?
I think is very important for Black folks as well as professionals looking to serve Black folks to understand that we have just like we have, as I saw someone post today, brother Marvin from Melanated Social Work, he had made a post about, just like we have generational trauma, we also have generational strengths. And I say, definitely amen and not shade to that Black folks have assets within our community, as you spoke about earlier, Nia, that we have assets not just in our community but within our own families. Our grandmothers who have cared for us and who have healed us, spirituality that is always have a place in our community. That's why Black folks, we are relational people. So if a white clinician or other, or another clinician of color come in to serve our community, we have to understand building a relationship with us is critical to your work.
Yeah,
it's critical.
Yep.
That's what we respond to, relationships. That's why we don't let anybody just come up in our house, because we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable with you. And if you don't do your due diligence with establishing a relationship, Black folks are going to shut off. I'm in and out of homes and been in and out of homes for years now. If I lack the ability to engage and establish a healthy relationship with the families I say I'm serving, I already lost. I could discount anything else. Because it's irrelevant, because I didn't take that time out to connect. So Black folks have assets, and for far too long, we've been viewed intentionally as working at a deficit, and it's the perpetuation of pathology within our research, within our institutions of Black folks have been harmful. So I think understanding that, and then I'm going back to therapy that liberates, when you talk about rooted village cultivation, right? So I look at it as a Black belt clinician. It's not enough for me to just say, okay, I'm gonna go do my 45-minute therapy session. You take it easy, young brother. But it's important for me to be aware of the community I serve in Baltimore City. It's important for me to have relationships and know who's doing what. What are some other ways that I could best support the young brother I'm trying to hold space for? So if he's into music, for instance, it's important for me to know and connect them, or at least encourage and giving space for his creative expression. Because I had a young brother who did not process his grief and share his grief with other people because he felt uncomfortable. But Nia, you put on that beat, and that young brother talked about his 14-year-old friend that was shot and killed last year. He had that creative space to do so, and understanding that was the language he spoke in. So I had to understand that and encourage that he's not going to just come out and just sit down and say, yeah, this is what happened. But you put on that beat, and give some cadence to it and give
Yep.
that space for him to be creative, he will share. And what is it that is alienating him or bothering him? So really, to use a cliche, thinking out the box
Yeah.
and understanding the assets that the Black community already have
Mhm.
within their family, and using them in terms of support. Whether we talking about grandma, whether we talking about Uncle Rodney, whoever it may be, and pulling folks in. You know,
Mhm.
I would tell mom, like, that's your key right there. You need to pull Uncle Nook in because he responds to him. Um, you know, that's just real. He going to respond to him differently than he would to you. Use
Mhm.
that as your tool to communicate with him, because Nook explains it differently than mom can. So understanding that Black people have value. Never mind that Uncle Nook probably got a pass. He
Yeah.
probably been locked up. He probably, did his dirt on the streets.
Mhm.
Understanding that Uncle Nook has something to offer too.
Yeah.
Because that the one you say you serving, he listens to him. He doesn't listen to you. He has a
Yep.
relationship with Uncle Nook.
Mhm.
And it's important for you to understand that and see that as an asset, not a
Mhm.
deficit.
Mhm.
And I would say us starting there, realizing that Black folks have strengths and
Mhm.
respect those strengths, as Dr. Robert Hill, the sociologist, has talked about in his work, the strengths of the Black families. Understand that Black people are assets to their community. Black men, Black boys, Black women are assets to
Mhm.
their community. I would say that's a good step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And it's a great way for us to segue into welcoming our next guest, who is an asset to our community. Young Elder is a member of the Mayor's Trauma Informed Care Task Force. She is an OG from the Healing Youth Alliance, and has been doing some incredible work here in Baltimore, and makes music too. And so I'm going to welcome Young Elder to the stage. And let's keep rocking and rolling. Hey,
Hi, everybody.
how you
Peace,
doing?
peace,
I'm doing
peace.
pretty good. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. So Elder, tell us about your work, your story, how you even got to being on the Mayor's Trauma Informed Care Task Force. I was going to show the video, but it's better because we have you here live and in living color. So tell us a little bit about that and the work that you do.
Okay, great. So, like she said, my name is Young Elder. I'm 19 years old. I'm a freshman at Coppin State University, and I'm also an ambassador, part of Healing Youth Alliance. I'm a youth leader, part of Heart Smiles, and I work with the Trauma Informed Care Task Force. And honestly, like these things wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the traumatic experiences that I experienced growing up in Baltimore firsthand, and just trying to understand how to heal, understand how to cope, and understand how to move forward. It took a lot. I went through a lot of therapists. It was a lot of hard times, but being able to get in touch with my community and my peers who are actually interested in bettering their mental health and bettering their future and being successful kind of helped me dig myself out of that hole. So once it kind of all was like a domino effect, I started working with Heart Smiles, grew a family, grew a connection, and then people, found out that I did music, found out I was creative, and started asking me to do different summits and things. So was able to get my face out there other than just through my music. So once people saw that I really do care about mental health and I do care about pushing the youth, then I was on the Healing Youth Alliance. So once I got on there, then other people saw, more of me and my team doing work towards bettering mental health. And that's how I got asked to be on the Trauma Informed Care Task Force.
Nice, nice. And so, in all of that work, what have you kind of learned about yourself from all the work that you've done?
Honestly, a lot of things that I've learned about myself is I know like my body, I know like my mind, and I'm able to like analyze when different things are triggering me. Because before I even started working with mental health, I like we all have our moments, but I didn't understand like certain moments aren't just moments, but they're actually triggers. And being able to actually understand those triggers and understand how to prevent those triggers has really helped me really grow as an individual, because it really sucks when triggers kind of control your life, because you don't know, why you're acting a certain way, but just the way your brain is from the traumatic experiences and from the things that you experience throughout life and different interactions with people can really take a toll on how you look at things and your perspective on just the whole world. So just being able to understand that kind of helps me have more empathy for my peers, because before I just used to be like, oh, those kids, those the bad kids, or those the crazy kids. But now I'm like, nah, that's not really the case. The case is, we suffering from trauma, and it's a lot of symptoms that come with that, and just being able to understand those symptoms and understand how to best treat the symptoms, and not just trying to control somebody's life and change them and tell them what to do.
Yeah. And so if you could tell the adults who are listening kind of like one thing about, like, the topic for tonight is I am not my trauma, but if you could tell them one thing about like how they should be interacting with young people and when they bring them to the table, how they should build relationship, what would that be?
So one thing I would say is be patient and don't tell somebody how they should feel. Because a lot of times, especially when it comes to youth, if you don't understand, you'll try to just say, well, here's what you should do, or here's what you should do, when it's deeper than that. It's deeper than, oh, here's what you should do, then just do it. Just having that patience and being able to have that bridge of communication and trust. If I tell you something and I know it's wrong, don't throw it back in my face, because then it's going to make me not want to say anything ever again. I know what I did was wrong, because we all human, we all make mistakes. But just having somebody who can support you through your wrong decisions, through your mistakes, and actually say, okay, you messed up, but here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to give up on you. I know you said one thing, but that was a whole lot of things.
No, you got it. You're speaking from your heart. And so I have one last question for both of you, and would love to hear your thoughts. And then Elder, we definitely want to hear a piece or two. Drop us some bars. Do your thing. But there's this African concept of Ubuntu. I am because we are.
Mhm.
When we think about our healing collectively as a people, and working with young people and speaking with adults who serve young people, what does that mean? I am because we are.
So for me, actually, I learned about Ubuntu when I was being taught by you, Miss Nia, when I was working with Healing Youth Alliance. So I learned about it, but I didn't understand like the actual concept, and understanding that my neighbor's pain essentially will be my pain, because we all growing up in the same city, we all are kind of experiencing a lot of the same traumas, if even though they're not exactly the same. It starts to wear on you, so just understanding that if the people around you aren't doing good, then it's going to be hard for you to do good as well. So just understanding that the pain of the people in the city is essentially going to, wear on you eventually. Because before, I used to know people who passed away, and, it was sad, but it's nothing you could really do. But it was just this past winter, one of my classmates, her brother had passed away, and it really took like a really, really, really bad toll on me. And I didn't understand why, because it wasn't my brother, and we weren't really that close when we were at school. I mean, we knew each other, but just knowing that she was going through that and experiencing those things just from a youth perspective, because I know how it feels, it hurt me really bad. So just understanding that, I am because you are. So if I'm good, I should be able to help my peers and help the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Bobby, you want to
I,
jump in?
I believe, young elder said it.
Yeah.
I feel the way they feel, in just in terms of I am we.
Mhm.
I am we. My success is tied to the young people of Baltimore. I don't punch a clock and say, all right, it's 5 o'clock. You know, I'm gonna go back to my world, my home, and that's that. Everything that impacts folks in Baltimore, you know, Black folks, young Black youth in Baltimore impacts me. I am we, you know. So young elder success is tied to my success. I need young elder to be successful, you know, because and she need those coming behind her to be successful, you know, because she's going to be at that space where she's going to be leading in another capacity, and she's going to be guiding, support, and mentor even more people than who elders supporting now. So I understand that because folks did it for me. So I am we.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Elder, your success is my success. I got scared because she was like, I didn't understand. I was like, uh-oh, I didn't teach it right. Your success is our success. We are so proud of you. And so I'm going to turn it over to you. You can introduce your song and perform. We'd like to have two, if that's on your heart. But I'm gonna give you the screen and we're gonna get out your way.
Okay, I got you. All right, I'm about to perform a song called I'm Trying, and I hope y'all like it. 6'2" with a hoodie, he a black male. Police searching through the hood. Only time will tell. When they find him, they gon' kill him. They ain't doing no talking. That mean he about to lose his life, just for jaywalking. Yeah, but that ain't it. He got a son and a daughter. They about to grow up alone. No, they won't have no father. Fast forward a couple years, son trapping every night, getting money for his mama, trying to keep on the life. No, he ain't had no father figure, had nobody there to guide him. Loyal to the streets, and he keep the Glock beside him. Nobody there to teach him that some friends are snakes. He just wanted fast money and the food on his plate. You see, the daughter grew up fast. She was looking for love, having sex with random guys, wasn't wearing no glove. And now she 19 and she got 3 kids. Ain't dead in job, she been working for years. Say, I'm trying, I'm really trying. Somebody get the tissue cause his mama crying, cause she turned on the news and her baby dying. Can we put down the guns? Can we stop the violence? Yeah, I said, I'm trying, I'm really trying. Somebody get the tissue cause his mama crying, cause she turned on the news and her baby dying. Can we put down the guns? Can we stop the violence? Yeah. How I'm doing? I'm not doing well, cause I'm living in a system where we set up to fail. See, statistically, I'm supposed to be dead or in jail, but I took a different route and told them I'm gonna prevail. See, I come from a city you can't go out after dark. Yeah, it's murder after murder, and I don't know where to start. And something has to change, cause it's breaking my heart. Yeah, I'm looking for the piece of city falling apart. I say these babies killing babies. I'm like, how did we come to this? Then we post it on the gram, and somehow we numb to this. And something has to change, cause I've had enough of this, and we killing our own people, and now we can't run from it. Thank you. All right, so since Miss Nia asked for 2, I'm gonna do a second one for y'all as well. So give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. It's been 5 years and I'm still going harder, cause they don't know the story, they don't know how it got started. It's like they were selling lies, somehow I really bought it. I don't talk about it cause it left me broken hearted. Elder with the music, yeah, all you used to do is rap. Lately I've been giving back, cause I've been trying to get on track. They don't understand all this fame, like standing on that stage and everybody knows your name, but don't nobody know your pain. So I just take the blame, cause I ain't put it in my songs, cause sometimes I would feel ashamed. See, I've been trying to right my wrongs, I put my heart on these songs. Lately it's been too long since I've been talking to God, but I know that we gon' make it out. We gon' make it out. I know that we gon' make it out, and I ain't never had a doubt. I know that we gon' make it out. We gon' make it out. I know that we gon' make it out, and I ain't never had a doubt. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. I really appreciate everybody coming. I really do appreciate everybody listening, because trauma is so important. And it's an issue that is really tearing our city apart. So I appreciate everybody coming here, supporting, being open minded, listening to me, listening to Miss Nia, listening to Mr. Bobby. Thank you so much, guys. And I love y'all. And if y'all want to keep up with me, y'all can follow me on Instagram at It's Just Elder. It's Just Elder, all one word. And I would definitely follow y'all back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elder. That was amazing. Amazing. And so everybody give her a follow. She's amazing, young superstar on the rise. Don't forget me when you get to the top. I'm gonna be in the crowd jamming. And it looks like Mr. Bobby just
follow from me.
Thank you.
Fire.
It absolutely amazing, you all. Before you leave, Bobby or Elder, we do something here at the Black Mental Health Alliance. Anytime we have a youth and college division event, we complete a sentence. And so the beginning is Dear Young Black Mind, and then you fill in the rest. So Dear Young Black Mind, I'm gonna kick it to Elder first and then to Bobby.
Okay. Dear Young Black Mind, the story is not over. Just because it may look dark and it may look like it's the end of the chapter, I promise you it's another side. So if you just keep flipping the pages, it's a page a day, and you gonna get to the end of the book, I promise.
Dear young Black mind, you are beautiful, you are awesome, you are unstoppable.
Awesome. Thank you both for our first YouTube live here in from rainy Baltimore. It's been amazing to share the stage with you all this evening to talk about our healing, not from a clinical point of view. This was never meant to be clinical. You know, I can talk for days about depression and anxiety and what that looks like in the DSM, but for our people, our healing is political, and it is together. I am because we are. And so we're going to end with a few announcements from the Black Mental Health Alliance. And so be sure to check out our podcast on all media outlets. It is on Apple as well as Spotify. And it's called Real Talk Black Minds Matter. We're on episode 7. It's some amazing content on that podcast. You don't want to miss it. Our next episode, we're talking about Black women leading in honor of Women's History Month. We also have 2 Instagram live series coming up next month, one for Youth Violence Prevention Week and another one about spring cleaning your mental health. And then finally, this coming Sunday at 5:30, we'll be on Facebook Live with our Poetry as Mental Health Club with a session called Let's Unpack That. And so we'll be discussing whatever the young people want to unpack. I have to do some work to get ready. You all, it's been amazing. It has been my complete honor and pleasure to do this with you all. Thank you for joining us from across the country. It makes my little East Baltimore girl heart proud. And so I'll end with, Dear Young Black Mind, your mental health is essential work. Your healing is political. It is not clinical. Good night, everybody.